We are not Jesus. We're to be like Jesus. And so I'm not perfect. Does that give me an excuse? No, not whatsoever. But mistakes are going to happen. So what makes me a leader in that then? How do we become problem solvers, not problem creators?
A podcast hosted by Jody Tree. Joe on the mic, Leader Talk, tackles various leadership strategies that cover self development, self leadership, including spiritual and physical health of leaders. This podcast will feature guests ranging from military leaders, thought leaders, health and nutrition leaders, spiritual leaders, nonprofit leaders, and many more. Welcome, guys. We are back again. This is episode 30. I can't believe it. This is super awesome. Episode 30. We're here with Chris Trice and or Tice or Trice.
Tice.
Three times. That 3 times the better. Like so nice, Chris Tice. And he's coming on. He has energy. He has focus. He has just a heart for leadership. And let me just do a quick introduction. And he is a leadership coach focusing on leadership communication, training and development in safety, crisis management, and avoidance. I love it already. Down my alley. I love that. He is also an inspirational speaker in which he focuses on mindset and forgiveness to live a healthier, inspired lifestyle. Chris has been in leadership for the past 20 years and enjoys helping others to become greater servant leaders. Oh, awesome, man. Chris, thank you for coming on, man. Being the person that you are, I've seen you on Facebook, your heart for leaders. But how did you get into this leadership concept and focusing on that?
Well, first, I want to say thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege, Joe. I just, any chance that God gives me to just share with others and what He has called me to do just sets my heart on fire. And so when I actually wrote that bio, is what Joe just read, everyone. And so when I was writing that, I just had to stop for a second because I knew the information, but I also wanted to just convey this message of hope, because in my life, I've had to see that hope come to life and have gotten to see it, not just to have to, but to get to. And from that, just knowing that leaders need inspiration. We need to not just be taught, but to be poured into. Because so often leaders get caught in the trap of pouring out. They pour out, they pour out, they pour out. And then the next thing you know, they hit this stage of burnout. They hit these stages of not knowing what's next. They run out of their resources. And if we're going to be resourceful, then we have to be fulfilled. And so the greater purpose in that, to make it short and sweet, is to live life fulfilled. And the reason why that is so prominent in my message is because it's prominent in my life. When I was 1.5 years old, my mother left my dad and I. Leaving him. I mean, yes, I had family that helped, and I don't ever want to not give them credit for that. But it was still just my dad and I. And I was raised, he did the best he could with what he had, but we also went through literally the life of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So I was raised around that, with thinking this is okay, but still this small piece of me, even as a little child, thought this doesn't feel right. And then along comes my stepmom at the time. And when she first came in and moved in, they called us in, my future stepbrother and I, into their bedroom and said, "This is our expectation of you." And it kind of started with the whole, hey, you're going to be brothers, you're going to fight, you're not going to fight, you're going to get along, you're not get along. Because both of us were single kids, only child at the time. And then here we are thrust together as pre-teenagers. I believe I was 10 years old at the time. And it actually went a little deeper than that. It turned into, Chris, the expectation of you is that you're going to struggle in school, which I already was, but it was because I just didn't care. I didn't think it was important. Um, you'll basically never amount to anything, and can't will be a part of your regular vocabulary.
Hmm.
And as a 10-year-old child, it's still this piece of my life of just kind of rejection. My father's telling me this. But there was also a small piece of me that just said something's not right there. Now, as a grown adult and as a believer and as a man of faith, I truly believe God was just prepping me for where I'm at now.
Hmm.
And I'll speak more to that as we go. But at the age of 10, you don't understand that and you don't know that. And so, fast forward a few years, I was in the Boy Scouts, and myself and another leader. Yes, he had the title, and he was an amazing businessman and business leader. But that's not the type of leader I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the leader that wanted to inspire somebody and didn't do it for his own gain. He
Hmm.
didn't do it because of rank, title, and position. He didn't do it to get himself promoted. He didn't need it. But we're sitting there drinking coffee as we always did, watching the sun come up on a picnic table. And he looks over me and says, Chris, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Hmm.
And even though I had some ideas, I just looked at him and I said, you know what? I don't know. And he said, well, why? And I said, because I'm not good enough. I,
Hmm.
I can't really do anything. And he uh, takes one look at me and says, Chris, don't you ever believe that about yourself again. I have watched you be a leader among young men and older men. He goes, you are capable. You have God's gift in you to lead. And he goes, you can. And right then and there, it set the stage for Can't Never Did. And it just simply put this heart of leadership in me, or excuse me, out of me that I didn't realize was in me, to just say Can't Never Did, because it never does anything for us. Yes, there are instances where that word can be appropriate, but on the whole, on the scale, when we look at our abilities, our talents, our gifts, what God's calling is on our lives, the word can is the one that works. Because when we put God into all of this, because we try and take him out, whether we do it on purpose or not, whether we're distracted, whether we just start saying, no, that's just not going to happen. God doesn't want me to do that. God wants the very best for us. And especially when he creates a leader, which I believe anyone can be a leader. I'm not
Yeah.
saying everyone should be, but they can be. And that takes the right training, the right development, and the right attitudes and mindset. But building this process um, in life to say I can, because with man, there's impossibilities,
Yeah.
but with God, everything is possible. Now, again, at the age of 14, did not understand that. But that small piece of me that said something's not right here started becoming this bigger piece of me of saying there is something right.
Hmm.
And so that just set me on this new trajectory and this new path where I started to realize there are things I can do. Like I went on to get my Eagle Scout. And I just got literally, let's see, today's Tuesday. So just this past Saturday, just a couple days ago, I got to put almost 21 years to the date of my dad putting my Eagle Scout neckerchief on me. I got to put it on my oldest son.
Ah.
Yeah. And so, passing of the torch, so to speak there. But it just I flashed back through all this, and I do this from time to time, not to harp on the past, but to
Hmm.
continue to learn from it.
Yes.
Leaders are learners.
Yes.
And so when we do that, we take that opportunity, which is what I was being given back then, even though I didn't understand it. See, that leader was more than just a scoutmaster. He was a mentor.
Hmm.
He was a coach. He was showing me you can, but my mindset was wrong
Hmm.
because I was always told I can't, whether it was actually said to me or not. Now, all of that said, I do not want to vilify my stepmom or my mom or my dad, because I had amazing experiences with them as well. But when I'm asked, how did you get to this point? While there's other things along the way, those are what really formed this can do attitude and just seeing life from opportunity. Because even many years down the road, when I decided to go back to school, one of my professors, we had this, our club was having this dinner.
Hmm.
And there was also 8 other clubs on campus having dinner. And I knew most of the people that were supposed to be coming to ours would be going to those. And I was being very negative. And he finally looked at me. He said, in 30 years of teaching, please understand, everyone, at the time, I was only 28. In 30 years of teaching, I have never in my life met someone as pessimistic as you.
Oof.
Wait, what? And then all of a sudden, dawned on me, I was like, hey, you really are bringing down the crowd. We ended up setting a record that night for the amount of people that showed up in 8.
Mm.
And so it was just another learning moment for me to sit back and say, okay, this is on me. And so as my leadership has developed, my own personal leadership, so the personal development in this, one of the other things that I realized is the reason why I was doing that was because I still had all this anger built up inside of me.
Mm.
Now, as believers, we go back to the Bible. And what does the Bible say about anger? You got to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Even more so for me, what does the Bible say about forgiveness?
Mm.
What did Jesus say? Not 7, but 77 times we should forgive.
Yeah.
And that was about that time when I had a pastor friend of mine, a mentor, a leader, look at me and say, you need to start forgiving.
Wow.
You have got to start forgiving these hurts. I mean, yeah, you're gonna have the scars. But if you let them be just that, and you learn to forgive, the healing that will take place in you will have phenomenal results. And so this is why I share these parts of my personal story for the inspirational speaking side of what I do, because I know I'm not the only one with this story, but not everyone does. So whatever I can do in my calling from God to help teach that forgiveness, to help teach overcoming the obstacles and the challenges that we have, or as in the case of what you've been doing, Joe, which has been absolutely phenomenal. Everybody, if you haven't been keeping up with Joe on Facebook, iron sharpens iron. So we should sharpen one another.
Amen. Amen.
When we can do that, we formulate this process. I call it forging, which it is forging. I'm not, nothing new created there. But we have this forging process through life that, we get tested in the fire. We can get beat up and hammered on and honed on. But when we look to what the end product will be, although it's not a final product because we're not final until God says we're done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a continual refining process as humans. But that product that comes out, when we focus on the positivity of what's coming out of it, it's a beautiful product. It's phenomenal. And we know it's something that God created in us. But here's the thing. You can't just keep it on the inside. Go therefore and make disciples of many nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Well, I can't do that if I just want to sit here and keep it all to myself and say, ooh, look at me.
Hmm.
I want to see other people grow as well.
Hmm.
That's why I decided to start the leadership coaching.
Hmm.
And having been in leadership coaching comes from personal development, but it's also business development as well. I've been in leadership, as you said in the intro, for about 20 years now in business, and I'm a retired firefighter. Retired early due to some persistent injuries and God's call on my life. And just seeing both the negative and the positive in the business side of things also made me realize God's giving me this opportunity to shine his light into what attempts are at a dark world, or also reflect the light that other people taught me. I mean, I look back on my career in the fire service, I had amazing leadership. I had amazing leaders pouring into my life that had title and position, and some others that didn't. Some were older, some were younger, some were the same age. But when you get a team together Jesus brought along the disciples. When you get a team together that's in it for the betterment of what can be a positive light in this world, well, that creation is just amazing, which is literally what God did with us. He created light, he created us.
Man, man, I love it, man. If y'all hadn't taken notes during Chris's talk, it's amazing. It's amazing. And you know what, Chris, I love the way, because it's about mindset and it is about forgiveness, and that's what you talk about. And a lot of people don't understand that um, forgiveness is a big key in life, because if you're carrying around hurts and pains from the past into your adulthood, you can unknowingly do that. And then when you get into relationships, and if you have unforgiveness with a certain situation that might have happened when you were 15, 16, or 17 or 18, it affects your current relationships as an adult. And then sometimes you may be wondering why. Well, why aren't I connecting with people? Why am I not excelling in my business? Why am my relationships not as where I would like it to be? It might be because you have some, like someone confronted you. You need to forgive, because that unforgiveness is keeping barriers in your posture in a defensive mode, because you don't want to experience that pain again. So you're closing yourself off to relationship and potential in your mind of a future hurt or a pain. And if you do that, you're cheating yourself out of wonderful, enriching experiences and relationships with other people that don't want to hurt you, that actually want to pour into your life and bring you up in maybe your role as a leader in your household, in relationships. So unforgiveness really is really a big hindrance in life. Um,
Well,
but
and without that healing, we have a hard time helping.
oh
So
gosh,
yeah, because that it's like the old airplane analogy that people use. God forbid the oxygen mask drops down. What does the pilot always say? You got to put yours on first. And while yes, we're here to serve others, and that's what Jesus came down. He did not come to be served, but to be served,
mm-hmm.
to be a servant. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was going through all that, and I had major anger and depression, I was drinking. After my first marriage did not work out. It was another set of rejection. That all led up to when that pastor said you need to start forgiving, and I have forgiven them. Some I've been able to tell to their face, others I haven't, or in some ways it happened organically just because my heart had changed.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm able to help others do the same thing. I mean, no, I'm not a counselor or a psychologist, but as a coach, I can coach you through that, through the experience. And so, like, I look at my stepmom. A few years back, I was able to take my oldest son. I have three kids, 18, 5, and 3 at the time of this recording. And the 18-year-old, for his 15th or 16th birthday, we went to go to a Styx concert, the band Styx. And yeah, I grew up on Styx, and that was my stepmom's favorite band. I actually got to meet them and had great experiences. And it's something that has kept her and I connected. And I sent her a message, said, "Hey, FYI, I actually get to take Bradley to his first Styx concert." And she sent me a message, said, "If you don't mind, can I have your address?" And if that had happened before I had the forgiveness in my heart and just allowing the Lord to change me, it wasn't me doing it. If it had been me doing it, and that's the point of where I'm getting at here, I would have told her no. I would have said that is not possible. And so instead, I just sent her my address. Well, a few days later, their brand new CD was in the mailbox, addressed to Bradley, my oldest. And the old bitter me would have been like, "No, I don't trust you. What are you? And it's pointless. She doesn't even live in this area anymore. She's not even in this state." And we'd had other conversations prior, but if we're not forgiving, we may not be healing. And I'm making that sound easier than it is, folks. This has been a process. I'm only 38 years old, and this started when I was a year and a half. And there are still times I get apprehensive. There are still times, I mean, another thing that unforgiveness can bring is fear. And that's because a lot of times because we're not forgiving ourselves. And all of this stuff that I said, it's formed where I'm at today. But please understand, I'm not a perfect angel. You know, Paul says in his letters that we are all sinners, of which I'm the worst. I've not led a perfect life, and I've made a lot of people mad myself. I've caused a lot of hurts myself, and especially though when I was angry, bitter, depressed, and unforgiving. And that is not the mark of a leader. That is not what Jesus came down. The big thing is at the end of that bio, it talked about creating other servant leaders, of which Jesus Christ is the greatest servant leader to have ever lived. He is the example, not a example, the example.
Yes.
So if you want to be a leader, you got to be the example. You got to be the light of Christ.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, what do you say? What would you say to someone that says, well, you know, I want to be a leader, but I'm afraid to make mistakes. That's why I don't step into that role.
Well, if you want to be a leader, mistakes are going to happen. But honestly, the first thing I usually ask, pending the situation and the personality, is, well, have you never made a mistake before? And I've yet to have anybody say, no, I'm perfect. I mean, as jokes, yes, I say it all the time, but no, we all make mistakes. But what do you do with the mistake? What do you do when crisis hits? Well, first of all, you got to take the overall picture and look at it, break it down to how do we manage this? You know, is it on a human scale? Is it small, medium, or big? Um, and then start deciding what are the most important priorities, and you start going through those, and then you get to the secondary, and however many there is. Hopefully there's not too many, but it happens.
Yeah.
But we've got to understand that it happens. It's going to happen. You know, what did Jesus say? For in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Well, what does that mean to me? Well, that means we're human. We are not Jesus. We're to be like Jesus. And so I'm not perfect. Does that give me an excuse? No, not whatsoever. But mistakes are going to happen. So what makes me a leader in that then? Well, a leader does everything else I said. They break it down into how do we become problem solvers, not problem creators in this. They keep calm in the chaos. And then they start to take down notes one way or another to say, what can we learn from this? What are we learning from this? How are we going to apply that? And what are we doing? Not are we going to do, what are we doing to keep this from happening? Or how do we mitigate, next time something this happens? Here's the thing. Leaders accept the responsibility and the liability.
Mm.
So if you're sitting back saying, well, I'm kind of afraid to do that, I guarantee you've done it at some point in time in your life. The leaders are the ones who are going to step up and step out. They're going to take that responsibility and that liability to say, here's what needs to be done. Here's how we're going to get there. Here's what we're going to do after the fact. And if you don't want to take that on, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's not what you want, don't do it. Because you have the potential of putting yourself in a position of power, or as I like to say, influence, that could have negative results. And we've seen that over and over and over again in the world.
Mm-hmm.
How many times we've looked in a situation and it always breaks back down to, well, who was at the top?
Yeah.
And even if the mistake was in the middle, it still goes above them because, and this is where my big platform comes in on training and development. We've seen so many instances in our lives where we took this training but did nothing with it after the fact. We didn't continue to develop the skill or skills that we learned.
Mm-hmm.
And so if there's someone at the top not doing that, I mean, I've had case after case tell me, yeah, hey, that resonated with me because when I got promoted for the position I've been wanting, I sat down at my new desk. I had everything in front of me and they said, okay, see ya. Well, wait a minute. What am I supposed to do? Well, I don't know. I learned from the guy before me. Okay, so what do I do? Just come to you every time this happens? Well, until you figure it out, yeah, just come ask me. And then they're given the answer. There's no, so there's no development in that, and which
Right.
is very unfortunate because we've missed out on a lot of opportunities for great leadership. And when we miss those opportunities, we miss creativity. We miss, I just said it, but I'll say it again, opportunity. And we miss a lot of potential.
All right, folks, time for a sponsor break. Hey guys, real quick, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain real quick. It's free. Did you hear what I said? It's free to make your podcast. They have creation tools to allow you to record and edit your podcast. They also have free music that you can use. Not to mention, they will distribute your podcast to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts for you. All right. And you can also make money from the podcast with minimum listenership. Okay. They have everything that you need. Look, download the app, Anchor, like the anchor on a boat. And the website is anchor.fm. Anchor.fm. Get it. What are you waiting for? Start your podcast now. Do it. Anchor.fm or download it on the app. Talk to you later, guys. All right, back to our episode.
And we do that in our own personal lives as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've had more than my fair share in my walk with Christ of trainings or doing a devotion. You're like, man, that sounds great. And I don't write it down. I don't take action on the next day. Remember, folks, I said, I'm not perfect. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm just saying these are the ways to improve.
Mm-hmm.
Always moving forward and onward by looking upward.
Yeah.
Always forging through those three. So I know that as I come out of it, I can be better. Even in the worst of it, I can still come out better.
Oh, man, this is some good stuff, and I always encourage people, just especially on podcasts like this, to listen to it again, glean some of the knowledge that was given. Chris has just been dropping some gold nuggets throughout his talk, and I love the way is that when we make mistakes or we mess something up, it's good to go back and evaluate it. What happened, what can be improved upon, what were some of the negative things that can be fixed, because not all negative things are bad, because if something bad happens, that means that there's something that you need to look at and pay attention to, say, oh, this is an area that needs to be rectified, and maybe you didn't see that area before in your walk, in your leadership, in your business, in your position, or in your business, whatever. You might need to take a look at it. And all correction is not bad. Sometimes people take correction as a negativity, but even someone who's criticizing you for something that you're doing can be something positive. It all depends, like we were saying before, it depends on how you look at it.
And that's so true. You got to keep a positive mindset, which is easier said than done. Again, I know I said that earlier, but it's the truth. But here's the thing about correction. And this is something that I had to learn about it, because I can get really, really, really hard on myself and beat myself down, even on the simplest of mistakes. And here's the thing: embrace a mistake, because you got to learn from it. But here's the thing about correction: most anyone who is correcting you, do you know how they know to correct you? Especially if they give you the how to correct it. They did it. They did it. And again, that doesn't always make it right, especially if it's a bigger mistake. But when we're telling our kids not to do something, I'll make this as simple as possible. You tell your kid not to do something. Why are you telling them not to do that? Somewhere along the line, you learned that, whether you learned it from someone else or you learned it from experience, because those two go hand in hand. Learning from someone else, learning from a book, learning from other information, or learning from experience, it's going to happen no matter what. But that's how we're able to hand lessons down, whether it's to your kids, whether it's to your spouse, whether it's at church, in business, to the newest person, to maybe even the veteran on the job. there's a first time for everything for somebody at some stage in life or work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's always going to be a first time.
Yeah.
Again, keep it simple. The first time I started shooting videos for my Facebook page, I was very close to the camera, to the point it was more like my forehead was talking to you, not my mouth. And my son, who was in broadcasting and journalism class and learning all these things, saw me recording one, shook his head, had that teenager, oh, great, dad's screwing it up again look on his face, when it comes to technology. And uh, I, I said, what? He goes, why are you doing that? I said, like, I'm recording, man. I'm getting the voice out there, getting the message out there. He goes, no, that part was good. He goes, why are you so close to the camera? I said, it doesn't matter. I'm just doing it because prior to that, I was scared. You talk about fear. I was scared to hit the button and record. I really was. And a week later, I kind of blew him off, brushed him off. Shouldn't have. But a week later, saw influencer Craig Ballantyne. He's on Instagram, and he said, folks, he goes, get away from the camera because no one wants to hear your forehead talk. And I just sat there and I went, huh. Yeah, you're not. That's not good. So two things. He came home that day. I apologized, talking about forgiveness, everybody. And I bought him some ice cream because
all right.
that's kind of what we do. It's an old firefighter tradition, buying ice cream, at least for us here. And, but yeah, so I had to learn. And the thing is, it was one of those deals where I actually learned two lessons in that. One was get your forehead off the camera. Two was a reminder, another Bible verse for you. Do not reject them because they are young.
Yes.
And that is where it comes down to communication and training and development and safety in crisis. We can learn something from each other, from everyone. I mean, if iron's supposed to sharpen iron and we're supposed to sharpen each other and we're not supposed to disregard each other because of our age, you can always learn something. I mean, ask a new parent versus a veteran parent what they're learning from the baby. Oh, when the baby cries like this or at that time, I've learned to do this. But then wait till they have child number two, because child number two is totally different. You're still learning. If you're listening to my grandma with the oldest, because there is that age gap. I'd complain about this, complain about that. She'd just start laughing at me. Oh, honey, you have no idea. You only have one. I had four, three of which were boys. But, here I was not only learning from my son through, both positive and negative circumstances or potentially negative circumstances. I was also learning from her. I was learning from myself. And that's why I say leaders are learners. We've got to exchange that information, and without just getting totally lost in the information world, do the simplest of things. Baby steps lead to giant leaps. And as a leader, you have to appreciate that and understand that. There are times I learned just as much from a rookie as I did a veteran. It may have been a totally different circumstance or a different conversation or situation, but when you close out that opportunity, that's literally what you're doing. You're closing out the opportunity. Prince EA has a YouTube video, and he talks about, folks, please do not quote me exactly on this, but he talks about the richest place on earth.
Yes.
You know where it is?
Yep.
It's the graveyard. It's the graveyard because it's where ideas and creativity have gone to die because people were ignored. People weren't listened to. People weren't given the option. And so, and usually the counter is that, well, what if we've already covered that? What if that already happened and been there, done that? Well, let's keep it from happening again by raising up the next generation from it. How does that sound? How does it sound to just be able to say, hey, listen, yeah, you are correct. That is a great idea. Here's what we tried. Here's what went wrong. Well, okay, so there's still an idea there. What if they go back to the drawing board and figure out that plan X that you didn't in that same idea that could have amazing potential for your organization or for your own personal development?
Yes. Cultivate creativity.
Yes.
in your culture. And one of my people that I follow, he's a coach, Coach Frenchie. We call him Coach Frenchie, and he is a great leader. And he talked about culture today, and you're kind of touching on that. Is in your leadership, in your home or in your business, don't stifle creativity, and not to stifle the younger generation. That's what I'm gleaning from you, and what their ideas, or even trying to spur them on to have ideas, and not to just if they come up with something that they might think is I don't know, bland or not relevant. Sometimes you just got to cultivate that as us as leaders. Say, hey, that's you know what, that's an idea. Don't just disregard that, even though they might not have a way to fully actuate it. Cultivate creativity. Keep on telling them to dream, to have ideas, even to tinker a bit in their ideas. And because you never know, like you said, you never know what might come out of it. It might be a new way of doing things, a new technology. Who knows? A new way of broadcasting messages. Like we're seeing Clubhouse is a new way of doing things, and it's quite simple. If y'all don't know about Clubhouse, it's an app where people just talk to each other.
I downloaded it and went, what is this?
Yeah. But it's catching on because people are excited. They could just, you could sit there in a room with a multimillionaire, and he's just talking about stuff with other multimillionaires, and they're sharing ideas and how they do business and whatever. I'm not promoting Clubhouse. I'm just saying that if we keep on cultivating the younger generation and not disregard them, because sometimes people say bad things about millennials and Generation X and stuff like that. But you know what? If we keep on talking negative to them, guess what's going to happen? It's going to be like you experience as a young person. You can't do this, you can't do that. But we need to say, hey, you can be creative. We don't know what this next generation is going to be capable of.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Well, we have to cultivate that culture of learning and even understanding. One of the things that I heard you in saying in that is, like re-referencing the Prince EA with the graveyard is, while that still holds true, what they are seeing, the research is showing, and especially where people start complaining about these newer generations, millennials, Gen Y, Gen Z. I don't know. My birth year and month has literally been labeled the last 4 generations. So I don't even know for me personally, but I can relate to all of them. That's why, I talk about bridge the gap of generations. Help understand and learn from one another, because one, none of us have ever done everything on our own, period. One way or another. Be as self-made as you want. There is still something or someone that helped you along the way. So why not open up that possibility of creativity? The other thing that's happening, though, is the ones that are getting ignored are what they're seeing anyways is one of two things. They're quitting and taking it somewhere else, which in this case is your competition, or they're quitting and becoming your competition. You look back through history of let's use Michael Jordan. He's always an easy example. He wasn't the number 1 draft pick.
Yeah.
He was number 3. Became the number 1 basketball player, arguably number 1 basketball player in the world.
That is amazing.
How would you like to be the guy that passed up on him? Okay. It's the same thing. And it may not always be a Michael Jordan type. But you never know until you take that chance for development. And then I get the question, well, what if they're not developing? Well, it's time to start training. Well, what if that's not working? Then be okay with figuring out a different way. A different way may be going separate ways. And we're in a rushed society now, and a mindset where I can just do that. I can just leave. There's so much talk these days of there's no more the one career mindset. You don't go spend your 30 to 40 years in the one business and then you just retire with whatever your retirement benefits are, and that's it. I mean, people are either working multiple jobs at once, and not just for income, but because of interest,
Mm-hmm.
or they're at one place, they fulfilled it, they didn't get promoted, they were ignored, or what they were doing there was done, and now they go over to another company and take it there. And we can decrease that turnover, that negative aspect of turnover. Sometimes it is positive. Sometimes it is a good thing for people to kind of part ways. I don't necessarily preach on that, but I do teach that it is okay and it is possible because it just
Yeah.
happens. But if we're actually cultivating a culture of creativity and opportunity and potential, which is what everyone says, I mean, that's how we grow profits.
Yeah.
That's how we make money. The you can only change the car so much. Oh wait, they are. So but the only way they're doing that is by allowing that creativity, and leaders not only producing that creativity but encouraging it, creating it's what I call the three great eyes of leadership. It's positive influence for massive impact to inspire others to do the same thing. And when all those three happen, you see a life fulfilled.
Mm.
You see creativity abound, and God's gifted us with that. I mean, over and over again, we see God's creation. My two youngest ones are in this stage of, Dad, Jesus created this cup. They're not wrong. If we know that all materials and all good things come from God, He gave someone that idea, the cup. Okay, again, just being simple, gave them the idea of the cup. But now we have coffee mugs, we have insulated bottles, we have glass, we have all these things. But um, when you look at the uniqueness of what God has created in us, I don't ever want to feel like I ever shut that down ever again. And I've done it. I've done it. I'll admit it. I'm not proud of that, and I've had to learn from it. I've made mistakes along the way, and I've had to apologize. I'm not afraid to do that either. And that's another thing about mistakes. Trying to bring all this full circle to those that say, "Well, I'm afraid to do it." It's not always that we're afraid to make the mistake. We're afraid we don't know the answer, or we're afraid we might have to apologize. We may have to own up to it, but that's just life. We're going to have to do it anyways. But when you learn from it and people see that change in you, I promise you're going to be okay.
Mm. Mm-mm-mm. Man, that's such good stuff. And you know what? And that leads to being authentic leadership. And we can go into another deep dive in that, which
Oh yeah.
ultimately turns into servant leadership.
Mhm.
Is owning our mistakes is not a bad thing. That's actually a big character trait that is positive, because people like it, whether you believe it or not. As a leader, that if you own up to your mistakes as a leader, people look at that and say, wow, he actually owned up to his mistake. He said, yeah, but let's go on from here, let's learn from it. And you know what, in reality, they develop a greater sense of respect for you in the process. And then your leadership actually gets magnified even bigger. Your influence becomes even bigger, because they see that this is truly a leader. Believe it or not, when I was in the military, look, I've seen colonels, generals, all make mistakes. Did that take away from them being a general or a colonel or whatever?
No,
No,
no.
no. Now, if those generals and colonels and all of them, and I've seen them before, even commanders, myself, you make a mistake in leadership and you don't own up to it, and you try to deflect and blame others, that only takes away. You still have that position, but
Mhm.
your influence is severely reduced. Because we could talk, oh man, we can even go into about positional leadership and actual
Oh yeah.
leadership. You know, that's whew, we can dig deep in those things. But Chris, thank you for this. You just given us all kinds of downloads. I love it. I love it. I love it. For Leader Talk and our audience, they're going to love this. They're going to dig deep. And guys, please comment, send me some messages. If you want to send some, ahas to Chris, let me know. But Chris, before we go, you have a challenge coming up. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you again for the opportunity and to speak on this. It begins February 1st through the 6th. Um, it is the Leading with Iron Challenge. It's all about being forged. And when we forge iron and we create this process, it becomes a beautiful product. And so to do that as a leader, and again, this is not just about title, rank, and position. This is leadership in your own life. This is business development. This is personal development. So even if you're not a business leader, this challenge will speak to you, because I want to discuss the forging process with you. I want to challenge you to understand you're going to have to go through that process. You're going to be put to the fire no matter what. You're gonna feel like life is hammering you down, and sometimes it is. But when you clean it all up and you hone it and you sharpen it and you shine it, you become this amazing piece of beauty that God has created in you that becomes ironing, sharpening iron. And we get to help others do the same. So it's all about that servant leadership. And yes, it's from the communication, how we talk to ourselves, because how we talk to ourselves is how we talk to others. So then what do? We have communication with others. We're going to work on our training and development. How do we set it up? Why do we set it up? Where does it come from? And then we're also going to talk about the safety and crisis management. And we're going to really also just kind of hone in on what is God's call on my life in this process, with where I'm at now and where I want to get to in the future. It's a free challenge. It's going to be a private Facebook group. It's 30 minutes, unless you join the VIP. The VIP program is it's going to be $17. It's Zoom. It's 30 minutes afterwards for Q&A. But the $17, all of that money, every bit of it, is going to Treasure House, which is the ministry that my mother-in-law is in charge of, that is helping take children out of sexual abuse and human trafficking and showing them the love of the Father. Mm-hmm. And so all the details are on the pages for that. But yeah, it's just going to be a great opportunity to really just hone in our own leadership development, not just as a business leader, but just as a personal leader, as a mentor.
Amen. You know, that's great. And I love you call it Leading with Iron Challenge. And guys, check it out. Jump on it, because you know what, and here's my perspective. I would rather sit with Chris and learn the fundamentals about leadership instead of taking 10 years and learning the hard way, when he gives you practical tools to develop your communication skills, develop it, safety and management crisis, and everything else like that in a five days for 30 minutes, unless you get the VIP, like you said. Hey, look, take 5 days, jump on that challenge, learn, glean from what he has to offer. And I see, just from our discussions and I've seen him on Facebook and in some of the groups that we're in, he has a heart for leadership, just like me. That's why, you know what? I'm a leadership coach too, but I'm telling you right now, hey, jump on his challenge. I already signed up to jump in there, because you know what? As leaders, we're continuing to learn. Leaders are continual learners. Mm-hmm. And like he's sharpening iron us. I want to learn from him too. He's in my group right now, which we're doing the power of Proverbs, and he's in our group, and we're learning from each other. It is a continual process, especially when you find other people that are like-minded, that want to grow, and not in a condemning way, because everything he said about learning and growing in leadership, it wasn't about condemnation. It was about, hey guys, this is a way to learn, to hone your skills and abilities as a leader, to go to the next level in life, to be that servant leader that God wanted you to be from the very beginning, from the foundations of when he formed you in your mother's womb. He had great expectations for you, and he put those skills and abilities in you for a reason and a purpose. And Chris is going to help you find it. So join up in this challenge, and let's go from there. And do you have the website up, or I can put the link in there later on?
Yeah, I'll get you the link,
okay,
because it's kind of a long one. Or Like he said, everybody, I'm on Facebook. My name is spelled out just as it is on Facebook. You can always connect with me there, and we can make things work that way.
Okay.
But I just wanted to highlight something that Joe touched on there. Everybody is we're helping one another. God built us for community. He built us for community. He saw man and said, "He is alone. That is not good." And then we continued to develop as a human race. It hasn't always been perfect. It's definitely been messy, but that's also why he gave us Christ. And Christ built us in community as the example of servant leadership. And that would be my encouragement to everybody here. Go out and be that servant leader. See who you can help and how you can help them, assist them, guide them, whatever words you want to use there. But just be in community for one another.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Chris, for coming on. I
Well, thank
appreciate it.
you.
And look, hey, follow him. Again, we're going to put him on the link to his challenge. But like he said, you can find him on Facebook, Chris Tice, just like it is here. And we'll spell it out. And look, hey, get in touch with him. Join his challenge. And this is for men and women. It's for anybody, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right, yeah. Men, women, young and small, great, whether you're big, large, all in between. Hey, leadership is for everybody, and he's gonna do great stuff with you guys. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are done with the podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode.